Should we move on to the plethora of gaming news we have?
So much of gaming news.
I mean, this is mostly just news from this week anyway. It's just
Yeah,
like we said, E3 feels like E3 started, man.
all gameplay stuff. What do you want to start with?
Yeah, well,
Hmm.
I'll go through the thing that I thought was the most interesting this week was Horizon Forbidden West gameplay.
Bam.
Yeah, Sony just out of nowhere was like, "Hey, state of play
Hey.
coming, 14 minutes of gameplay." In True's Bob, we got 14 minutes uninterrupted gameplay.
Actual gameplay, yeah. Yeah,
It
just
is.
get that
Let me
trailer
tell you
going.
that. Okay, this
Why is
looks
this not
like
working?
Horizon for sure. Like,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely looks like the same sort of format, but with improvements and additions in, I think, all the right places. So the thing that stood out to me was combat. Aloy looks a lot more dynamic in combat, like
Mm.
switching between melee and ranged combat. You also
Yeah.
have a lot of melee combos now. It's not just
Yeah,
very one melee
the
stuff.
melee stuff stood out to me immediately because it does look like actual, there's some depth there. I'm hoping at least. It
Yeah,
looks like there's a little bit more,
it looks a lot better than
yeah.
the original. Yeah. I mean, Aloy even has like an ult, so that's cool.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
I mean, what more is there to say than it's just more Horizon Zero Dawn with cool looking creatures, new environments,
yeah, I
and
mean,
good
check
lord.
these guys. They look like velociraptors, and they've got
Yeah.
like chainsaws for mouths. It's
Can
the
I
robot
just
design
say,
in this game is
yeah, can
fantastic.
I just say that like the game is obviously very light, like not gory, in any,
Mm.
in that regard, but these monsters would fuck you up.
Oh, they would do monstrous damage to you,
There's
like absolute,
monstrous damage. My God.
like absolutely insane. I mean, I don't
Hilarious.
think we need to state the obvious, but this game looks incredible.
It looks
Like,
insane.
I
Yeah.
mean, the first one looked good because of all its color and also just its monster designs. But this, from a technical standpoint, the lighting, especially when you're looking at Aloy's hair, just looks phenomenal.
Mm,
And just the color, just so much good color.
yeah.
I think we're coming up to a part here where she, Aloy jumps, if
Into
you're
the
watching on the video
water.
version, she
Yeah.
jumps into the water, and that is just like insane.
Yeah. When that
Uh,
happened, I was watching next to Lenska and I was like, oh my God, you can swim. And I was like, oh my.
yeah.
Look at all that coral life and everything. Yo.
Another big change here on the video, you can see there's a lot more freeform climbing.
Yeah.
The first one, especially considering it launched alongside Breath of the Wild, felt so restrictive.
Criticized. Yeah.
Yeah, with its climbing, like because you could only climb in certain spots. It was really crappy.
Yeah.
Um, so this looks more in line with like an Uncharted or a Assassin's Creed, where it's a lot more liberal, which
Mm.
I like a lot. And then you've got other tools like a grappling hook, of course. You've even got a little like hologram shield parachute, which is very Breath of the
Breath of the
Wild-esque.
Wild. Can I tell you, I love that
Funny
they've
enough,
just
a lot
lent
of
into that.
people, funny enough, a lot of people are like, oh, they took it from Fortnite. It's like, oh god, this is the industry we're in now. Yeah, exactly. It's just,
I mean,
but yeah, looks good. Do you watch the whole gameplay video?
I
What did you think
watched.
of that fight at the end?
I really liked it. My thing is, it's just like I hear you. There's all the optimizations, but there's still, that good combat that I'm really excited for. Stripping away these mammoths of creatures and then just toppling them. And like we've seen. I mean, what weapons did we really see? There's still like the catapult, there's a bow and arrow, but I know there's going to be a ton more of like not only familiar tools but maybe new ones as well. Like
Different type of arrow tips, I'm
yeah,
sure.
but yeah, I really liked it. So I don't know. What did you think of the combat?
I think I've said before, but I loved Zero Dawn's combat, but I did feel like it was very easy to get into a rhythm where you didn't have to change
Oh, for
the
sure. Yeah, I hear
bow
you.
types and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that there's more of a balance on that, like more of an incentive to swap between certain
Yeah,
weapons. Like we see in the video, I love that you can still knock off weapons
and
from
use them.
enemies
Yeah.
and use them against them. I mean, this fight against this big elephant is just incredible.
Mm.
It's the like the dynamic parts of it, like where she shoots off the like human I don't know, seating on top of it, and it just
Yeah,
crumbles so
it's
realistically.
amazing. Yeah,
And the
hit or
fact that she
miss.
can do stuff like this in combat, like she grappled to a point, grabbed on it, climbed, jumped, used a parachute, like you could never do that in the
No,
original.
yeah. Oh,
So it just looks so much more fluid and dynamic in, you know, in all regards, which I'm super happy for. Love that they lots of glowy bits on enemies, so I know where to shoot.
yeah.
But yeah,
I'm stoked for
very
this
excited.
game.
They didn't
It's
reveal a release date. Interesting.
no. So I don't know if it will come this year. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll learn later this year. Maybe they're still trying to figure that out.
I mean, Sony's Jim Ryan was pretty adamant that it was still coming this year. But I mean, you know, at the end of the day, COVID is COVID. It's impacted a lot of games, and I could see it would be bad, I think, if it slipped into next year, because then what does Sony have as a holiday game?
yeah,
But at the same time, like whatever, if it slips, it slips.
yeah,
I I will love to see this on a PS4. I
yeah.
I don't know
That
how this
I
works
think
in a
that
PC.
it's definitely worth mentioning that this is a cross-gen game.
Yeah.
I I don't know, like from what we've seen now, just in terms of the actual performance, the crumbling buildings, even just swimming and stuff. I'm like, how will that run on
Good
a
luck.
PS4?
Yeah.
Like it,
And I mean,
they've got
this
plans,
what they're
but
showing us is PS5 footage, and from the footage itself, it doesn't look like it's running at 60 frames per second,
mm,
which is, I mean, Spider-Man Miles Morales was the same if you had it on its like fidelity mode or whatever. Um, but like, yeah, good luck to it on PS4. That's all. I mean, this looks like, you know, Miles Morales look good for
yeah,
sure, but this looks like a step ahead of that, and that's meant to run on the same console.
yeah.
Yeah,
Good
let's
luck.
see. And again, it is the Decima engine, which is, you know, it's Gorilla's one, the one that was used for Death Stranding, and Death Stranding looked
It's
fucking
real good.
incredible.
That's true. Look, I
So,
think they'll make it work. I just don't know where they cut. Like, I don't know.
mm.
The world just looks very lush, very
It's
dynamic.
very
So,
dense, lots of little details. So
yeah,
if you lose that denseness and the detail, yeah.
I don't
But
know.
we'll see. At this point, it will be running on a console that is 8 years old. That's
Which is
yeah.
just insane.
Yeah.
Which game do you want to cover next?
You go.
Hmm.
You choose. There's two to
So
choose from.
I only watched the Horizon gameplay, but I suppose the one
Oh,
game I'm excited. Well, look, I'm excited for both, but Dying Light 2, I'm glad that it's still alive because there were concerns of like, where is this game? Like, what is happening with Dying Light 2? But now I think this week they released a new trailer and they gave us an actual release date, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. It's I think December 7th, if I'm not mistaken, or 6th. It's taken the Cyberpunk
7th
2077
of
slot.
December, yeah.
Yeah. So
Let
I
me just
watched
get
the whole presentation. It was good. I think the game visually looks really good. I know. I don't know. Some people seem to not think so. I
really.
don't understand. I think it looks pretty great.
I think even Dying Light 1 was quite a
Yeah, Dying Light
real
1 looks
technical
fantastic. Yeah.
masterpiece. Can I just say
And
I love Dying Light 1. Like I
oh,
really
same.
enjoyed that game. And I played it I didn't
Absolutely.
play it at launch. I played it when the first expansion came out. I can't remember what it's called now, but that's when I first played the game and I inhaled both, like the main game and the
I
expansion.
played it at launch, and it was one of those rare games where I was not expecting it to be anywhere near as good as it ended up
Mm,
being. Like, I'd played Dead Island before, and Dead Island really didn't do it for me. So I was like, oh,
mm,
this is Dead Island, but with parkour. But man, it was fucking great. Like,
man,
just getting around the city and the combat, and especially those nighttime portions, like where you were
those
running back for safety.
nighttime portions were terrifying.
Exactly. The tension that they created just really, really good. So, this presentation focused a lot on their story. Like they are really harping on this idea of enemy human factions and your decisions having a tangible impact on the
Yeah,
world. And like I get that, but it's still, to me, still seems very binary. Like
yeah,
you make one decision, you can see the sort of mechanisms behind working. It doesn't,
mm,
to me, it doesn't feel like it's as um interesting as they are trying to make it sound. If
yeah.
if
In
that sounds
terms of
harsh, like we'll see. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But other than that, the gameplay looks fairly similar to the first one. Like you are still parkouring
Mm.
around, you're still making really ridiculous melee weapons,
Mm.
crafting, but it just seems like more polished all around. Like the melee combat looks a bit more refined. The parkouring looks a lot more fluid. Like depending on where you're looking, the animations kind of follow that in a much more realistic way. I think it just looks great. And it seems like they're going to be a lot more enemies, different looking zombie enemies. And the same sort of risk and reward if you want to stay out at night, which is great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean
yeah.
the risk reward in the original game was you got double XP at night, which is, I mean, they
And
could,
if you raided certain safe
yeah,
houses
you
at
get,
night, you got better rewards.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Dying Light 1 came out, it was a long time ago, right? It was like
It
5,
was like
6 years
2014,
ago,
somewhere around
7
there.
years ago
Yeah.
now. And like, I don't know, a lot can change in 7 years in a game. So I'm hoping that they, like, I love the formula that they have, the whole parkour system and exploration. But I'm curious to see how that evolves. What do they do with this game? And look, if they can pull off the whole faction thing of like, oh, your decisions have massive ramifications, like cool. But at the end of the day, I just want an open world zombie parkour game. Like I'm not gonna cry over a bad story in a game like this if the gameplay is fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like Dying Light 1 didn't have a really fascinating story. I
I
don't
can't remember
actually
the story. I was just
really.
thinking I need
Yeah.
to go Google it to get like a look at the wiki page just to get a recap of what actually happened. Even though I don't think it ties into this at all, but
Yeah, this one takes place 20 years afterwards. So
okay.
I don't even think I can't recall, but I don't think the protagonist is even the same. So
No, but there might be a
yeah.
nod. Some clan
Yeah, I'm
leader will
pretty
be like,
sure.
"Wow, it's the original. That is the dude from the first game. Wow."
Yeah.
Or something. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's
But
coming out
it
this
looks
year,
good,
and
yeah.
I think it looks great.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I'm glad that it's finally got a release date because like it disappeared somewhat after
it just
showing it
vanished for a
through
long
2019.
time.
Yeah. But yeah, looks good. I'm keen for that. The last big game reveal for the week, we say that as if it's like a disappointment, but yesterday Ubisoft finally
It's Far
showed
Cry
off
6. It's nothing bad
Far
there.
Cry 6 gameplay finally. Funnily enough, when they announced Far Cry 6, when was it? Last year? It was meant to have been out by now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was originally slated to launch in like February 2021 and then got delayed. They put they said, "Oh, we're going to reveal it at Hopper 6." And then everyone came at
It
Hopper 6
was,
in the evening and then there was a 30-minute countdown.
yeah,
It was
which is
like
just
fucking
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Oh my god, this
Um,
has the countdown. Hang on, let me just skip
yeah.
ahead here.
So the game's coming out now, I think October 7th, so it's still a while away. It's set in like a fictional, it reminds me a lot of like Cuba. It looks almost like a South American country, but it's basically got Caribbean influences. It's a fictional country which has kind of been broken off from the rest of the world. So you've got this weird aesthetic where you've got cars from like the 1950s and 60s that are like broken
It's
down, dilapidated
basically
with
Cuba.
modern technology. Yeah. And you are basically, I think you're playing as two different protagonists. I'm not sure if you can swap between the two, but there's a woman, a revolutionary named Dani Rojas, which is, I think, very funny because Dani Rojas is a very popular character from the football series Ted Lasso, and like,
Oh, really?
shit, he must have known that.
My goodness.
So I find that quite funny. And then I don't know if it's like a brother or just a companion, another guy that it seems like you can play as. I don't know his name. He didn't really feature as much. And then obviously you've got Giancarlo Esposito, who's
the baddie.
Gus Fring from Breaking Bad as the baddie. So yeah, Ubisoft did its thing where they spoke a lot about the narrative and how like serious and like how important their story is going to be. But then they pivot from that to like, here, check this shit out. You've got a gun that can shoot vinyl CDs into people, and it's like, guys,
You're like,
just choose one or the other. Like,
yeah.
really embrace its nonsense, or like, don't. Because the gameplay itself looks ridiculous. Like,
it looks.
you're making guns from like scraps, and they just look absurd.
I mean, I think it was your tweet that you said exactly that yesterday. Of the, it's the super serious story of the whole revolution's happening, but then how serious can you take it when the tone of the game in terms of gameplay just seems less serious?
Yeah, it
Like,
just seems so
I don't
wacky.
know. Like, yeah.
It's like your character runs around with like a backpack that shoots rockets. Like, you telling me to take a story seriously when I can do shit like that?
Yeah.
Like, and you can choose between two companions, an alligator
What?
or a sausage dog that
Oh
has
my.
like wheels for its back legs. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. Like, come on. I don't
Listen,
know.
little chorizo. If he dies in the story, I will
Burn
delete this
this
from my hard
game to
drive.
the ground.
Yeah,
Look,
like that dog is so cute. The animation
there's the alligator. My
so
goodness.
cute. Yeah.
Look, it's difficult for me to comment because Far Cry, like my issue with Far Cry is interesting in that I played the original Far Cry, which for those of you who don't know was a
Developed by Crytek.
set on a tropical island where it was, the formula for Crisis as we know it now, where it's almost like semi-open world, big open island, but with a surprise twist aliens or creatures, by the second half of the game. Far
It really
Cry,
is Crisis. Holy shit.
yeah, Far Cry 2 I played. That is, set in where in Africa? Was that a specific African setting? I don't
I think it
know.
was a fictional one as well. It seemed
Also-
like more Sahara, like I don't know, Northern Africa. I loved Far Cry 2. Absolutely loved it.
So yeah, I played a bunch of it as well. But then Far Cry 3, 4, and 5, I just did not play. I played a bit of Far Cry 3, and I've just missed this entire franchise.
Far Cry 3 is incredible because Far Cry 3 perfected the formula that they haven't
Yeah.
really strayed from at all.
Yeah,
Like 4 and 5 are really just Far Cry 3
with different
ripoffs,
skins.
but they
Yeah.
are. Yeah, and Far Cry 3 really established the tone for this series. I played the hell out of Far Cry 3. I loved it. I think in that year it was probably like one of my favorite games of the year.
Yeah.
And then 4 was wacky and cool, and I liked the setting. It was fun. 5, I really didn't like. I played a bunch of it, and I thought it was very boring and stale. And this gameplay doesn't look very different from that. But
No.
again, they are embracing more wacky elements. So like, I'm into that.
Yeah, that's my thing as well. It's like I'm very keen to try it, but I can tell you now that in so many years, like there's a reason I haven't played the Far Cry's because I've dabbled with them and be like, like I'm just not feeling it. So I don't know.
And I definitely think they fall into that thing of the Ubisoft formula now, which is good. Like you play Assassin's Creed games and whatever they find, but I feel like they're getting to this point where they're just stuffing them for
the sake of content.
Sake. They're like, every game we put out is going to be 80 hours. Like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's difficult because obviously, that's what a lot of players want. Games are expensive. Like you're putting money down. A lot of people tie the value of a game to how long they can play it. And like I get that,
I get that, especially when games are at 1,500 rand. Like,
exactly.
I totally understand that. Yeah.
But it's weird because the selling points of a game, if you tell me a game is 80 hours long, I'm immediately put off. I'm like, or like if it's 80 hours to, see the main narrative, the average play time's 80 hours, outside of the side stuff, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to, commit that time for that.
That's why I haven't, like, we were talking about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the expansion recently, and you're like, that's a 12-hour thing. I'm like, fuck, awesome.
That is awesome. So on that thought train, like if you tell me Far Cry 6 is, the base game's going to take you 50 hours, I'm like, that's a bit long. But if you tell me like you can mainline the game in 15 to 20 hours and do some side stuff and have a 30-hour experience, I'm like, I'm more likely to play it then.
I mean, if I think of the games that I've played for like 80 to 100 hours, there's a lot more in there than just content. Like Zelda, Breath of the Wild, I played for over 100 hours, but that was because the sense of exploration.
It was so good, yeah. Look at that dog.
Look at him.
So cute.
So fucking cute. Grrr. I the sense of exploration was so strong that everything felt new and interesting. And the same thing for Persona 5. And even Persona 5 at a 100-hour game, like there were points where I was like, this is dragging on for too long. But that's a game where the story evolves so much over 100 hours.
Yeah.
That it,
Well-
I can take it. But if you're looking at an Assassin's Creed or a Far Cry, and you're like, this game's 80 hours. It's like, okay, what am I going to do that is different from hour 20 as opposed to hour 60?
Yeah.
And it's not. It's the same thing.
It's
just more.
So and I know I'll definitely come across as a hypocrite because I'm like, I don't want to put 80 hours into a game. Yet I have put 100 plus hours into a game like Monster Hunter. But the difference is like you can roll credits on that game and be done with it. Like you're not playing Monster Hunter for 100 hours just to, complete the game. That's me playing it because I'm just enjoying the shit out of it. So I completely understand if a game is just fun to play. Like I'll give it my time. But like you've pointed out, don't just put content for the sake of putting content. Like I don't know. It's Ubisoft,
It's a
I think,
tricky
are
balance, yeah.
notorious for that as well. Just of like, it's the Ubisoft formula. There's just a map stuffed with objectives, and some people like that, and that's cool. But I can't say that that gets me excited. Like, there's a reason Valhalla almost, it wasn't a bitter taste, but by the end of it, I was so fatigued. I was like, oh, like, damn, that was 60 hours long, which granted, I still mainlined a lot of it. But it was really just me pushing through because I'm like, well, I've played 40 hours. I might as well just, see it out to the end, which is why that expansion is like such a breath of fresh air. It's like, oh, it's only 10 hours and I've done
This is
everything.
getting me away from Assassin's Creed Odyssey because, like, I loved Origins, but Origins, and I did pretty much everything in Origins was like 40 hours, 50 hours. And then, like, I look at Odyssey and people are like, oh yeah, it's like 80 as well. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine playing, like, Origins felt long for me. I can't imagine
Yeah.
playing double that. You know what I mean?
I know, and even in that, like Odyssey is probably the one Assassin's Creed I think I'd enjoy the most because I love that setting. I just think, that time period leading into Greek mythology. Wait, it is Greece, right? Yeah.
It is Greece.
Yeah, I'm like,
ancient.
I'd love to explore that, but when you tell me it's 80 hours and stuff's gated off by like levels, I'm like, oh
too
no,
much.
thank you.
It's too much.
Yeah, but that's a trio of gameplay that we got this week, which, like you said, it got your juices going for E3. It's
Really
you
feels
just
like
kick that
E3
little,
Yeah.
give it another week or two, and
Speaking of E3, this week we got a fresh batch of Nintendo Switch Pro rumors, courtesy of, I think it was the Washington Post. It was Bloomberg. That was then corroborated by Eurogamer. Basically, the details of the report haven't changed. Still seems to be a system with a 7-inch Samsung OLED display, so a bigger display in the same size body as the original Switch. A dock that will support an output at 4K doesn't necessarily mean the games will run at 4K, just at least it's doing upscaling on the console side and not depending on your TV, which is always good. Potentially NVIDIA DLSS support, which is a big plus if that's true. And what was interesting was that Eurogamer actually suggested that when this launches, this will phase out the original Switch.
Yeah.
It will not be a tier sort of like a PS4 Pro that will live alongside.
It just replaces it.
Yeah, it just replaces it, even though it might potentially and likely will be more expensive than the current model. So I guess Nintendo sees their Switch Lite as their
entry level
budget offering.
Well, what's quite
even though
cool.
that can't be used with a dock. So
Yeah.
I'm slightly confused by that.
But what's quite cool so I mean, like, I agree with you, it's a strange move, but what's quite cool about that is if you're on the fence about a Switch, this new one will likely knock down the price of the OG as, stock gets cleared out. And the Switch is a great platform. Like, we can't stop talking about it because we both love the console and there's plenty to play on it.
I wonder if you start getting into a scenario maybe a year or two down the line where it's like, this game is only for the new Switch.
I don't know.
And that's dangerous.
Yeah, the thing is, Nintendo are notorious for doing exactly that. Like, well, first of all,
did it with the 3DS.
Can they just not call it the new Switch? Can they just call it something else?
There was an Amazon product listing page which seemed to indicate that it's called new Nintendo Switch Pro. So
No,
they got new and Pro in there.
just call it the Switch Pro. We'll know what it is. It's like it's the PS4 Pro. Like
It's
we
just
get
like the
it.
3DS.
Just,
It was you got the Nintendo 3DS or new Nintendo 3DS.
yeah, which
I
is
was like,
just dumb. Just
come
call it
on.
just add Pro or the Switch S or the Switch X or something. Just add
Yeah.
one little identifier. Look, I'm sure we'll. I have to believe that E3 will be a stage to show something.
So this is interesting, is that both reports from Bloomberg and Eurogamer actually say it will be revealed before E3.
Oh yes,
so
no,
that
I remember seeing
E3
that.
can be used to show off games. So that would mean if Nintendo's going to reveal it, it has
It's
to be in
this
the next
week.
week or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as this report came out, people were like, oh shit, this is happening this week. It didn't happen, but knowing Nintendo, they'll just be like on Tuesday, they'll be like, hey, there's a direct tomorrow. And you're like, okay.
So
cool.
we friends with Frank from Nintendo, who I know listens to the show. Frank, if you're listening,
He's told
just
us all our secrets.
blink twice if this is true. Just tell us. I'm expecting some eye emojis in WhatsApp. Like, hey.
I mean, I'm almost. It makes the most sense that they reveal the console and then at E3, whatever direct they have at E3, they show off
Breath of the Wild 2.
I mean, they say a lot of both reports say that this console's out as early as September, so that's crazy.
I am so down for that. I would pick this up in a heartbeat.
I think if this console comes out this year, Breath of the Wild 2 comes out this year.
Yeah, 100%.
That is, and then you run into the same scenario of potentially Breath of the Wild and Horizon launching alongside each other again, which I'm sure Guerrilla's just like, fuck's sake, God.
Well, and you know what'll be fun is that they'll launch in the same period, and then Horizon, as good as it is, will be like, I can't believe that it pales to Breath of the Wild 2, which introduced this new open world mechanic that we can't go back from.
Horizon will be like, damn, we got the parachute finally, and Breath of the Wild will be like, hold my parachute.
Yeah, but they'll be like, we got the parachute from Fortnite. Okay, get your facts straight here. Okay, let's fly through the rest of this news.
Uncharted coming to PC. Apparently, Sony released a slideshow to investors just to kind of like give them an idea of what's happening. They hilariously took a Google image of God of War Ragnarok to show that a new God of War was coming, even though that is not the official title. So that's a real fucking laugh.
Yeah.
But part of the slideshow, they indicated that Horizon and Days Gone have done well on PC, and that Uncharted 4 will be the next release on PC. So that's cool. I'd play that again.
100%. Yeah. I wonder. I think this report as well was like, where's the original trilogy? Like, why wouldn't they do the collection?
Yeah, I put that original trilogy on there.
I mean, that's a whole player base.
It's real weird to me that there's a report that it's come to PC, but it hasn't even received a patch to run at a high frame rate on PS5. The same thing with Horizon Zero Dawn, actually. It just doesn't have one. Out of the 3 games coming to PC, Days Gone is the one that got the patch on PS5. Like, come on.
I'm curious to revisit Days Gone purely because I just want to see what it looks like. No, look, I wouldn't play it again, like to roll credits. I just want to see what an open world zombie game looks like on a motorbike with Deacon. No, you're right. Yeah. And then last piece of news, you can run us this because I have no idea what this is. Unreal Engine 5 gets a stunning demo.
Unreal Engine 5 got a new demo this week. I mean, if you recall, last year they revealed Unreal Engine 5 with that stunning a gameplay walkthrough that they said at the time was only possible on the PS5's SSD. The demo they have here runs on Xbox Series X.
Look at that rock.
Take that as you will. There is a lot happening in this engine. I think the most impressive to me is Lumen, which is their global illumination system, which actually doesn't use ray tracing, which blows my mind.
Right.
So essentially one light source that can light objects in real time, which will save developers and especially artists a lot of time on
artificial lighting stuff. Yeah,
they would honestly light a scene and then leave it overnight to pre-bake and render, and then if something in the scene had to change, then all of that had to be redone. So this potentially changes all of that. There's a lot of great tools here that developers are seriously impressed over that I've seen already.
Well,
So yeah,
pardon the expression, but this looks unreal. Let me tell you.
it looks
Geez,
phenomenal.
like this
Really.
is insane. Look at that. Yeah,
Yeah.
audio listeners, we're looking at rocks that look lifelike. If you're
Yeah,
wondering,
they've
but
got
holy
their whole
hell.
like photogrammetry like system in there, so like you can get really realistic models that you can just like the video just showed there place there. It handles a lot of um polygons a lot better. I mean, I've seen a lot of developers freaking out over how incredible this is, but also the same thing like people should not expect games to just be like automatically
Oh
optimized
yeah,
just because
it'll
like
take a
there's still
while.
lots that needs to go into it. And the scene they're showing here is a lot of rocks in a desert. There's not a lot of action happening. So, of course it's going to look better than what an actual game that has to take into account AI and movement and all the things that stress the CPU will have to take into
Okay, I'm
account.
gonna
But
sell you on a game quickly, Journey, but it's lifelike.
fuck, I'll take it. I'll take it. Just a lifelike desert. I'll take it.
Exactly, yeah. There's no action. It's just a beautiful environment and you're just walking through it.
So the engine's in early access now. You can download it and mess around. They released the demo that they showed off. You can mess around with it in the engine. It's shipped with it. Also, if you enter the Konami code in the demo, the robot in the demo dabs. So that's fun.
Of course it does. This is crazy though, legitimately.
It's really cool. I kind of want to download it and mess around with it because it looks really
My goodness.
something. Very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of games already in development with Unreal Engine 5. Hellblade 2 is one of them. They showed off a very impressive looking cloud system that is unique to their work on the engine. So yeah, there's a lot of people are going to be able to do incredible things with this engine, and I'm excited. I'm sure the first games with it will only start coming out next year, though.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Am I? Okay. Is that?
I don't know. Maybe Hellblade comes out this year. I don't think so, though.
I don't think so either. Is that
I don't think so.
news? I think that's it.
That's news.